two chapters today, and that would be The House of Gaunt and Hermione's Helping Hand. And I think that I'm going to do this in generally two parts. To start, let's look at how Harry is being compared here to a selection of characters, particularly in the chapter The House of Gaunt. But really, we're seeing some sort of clear signs in Hermione's Helping Hand of these comparisons being made. And I apologize profusely for the fact that I'm about to, massacre all of the Gaunts' names. To start, let's look at sort of a character that we actually generally get the least amount of information about, which is Morphin, the son who only speaks in Parseltongue in these chapters, and is very violent towards Muggles and very aggressive towards his own family. Morphin, sort of for Harry, represents the thing that he definitely does not want to become. And that is all sort of the negative stereotypes that he's been hit with over the years, particularly about his Parseltongue. All these negative aspects of only speaking Parseltongue, his violence even towards the snakes, his use of magic to terrorize Muggles. All of these are terrifyingly real possibilities for Harry, having been in a neglectful home and having to hide who he is for fear of just his uncle snapping at some point. He couldn't even say the word magic, never mind the fact that even if it's not real, a lot of Muggle children's books talk about magic. It's a normal word for kids to use, and the fact that that was a terrifying thing that he knew he couldn't say, that's an issue. So with Morphin here, we suddenly get this image of what Harry possibly could have been if his situation had gotten even slightly more out of control than it was. And we actually have moments where we, in Hermione's Helping Hand, there are moments where this is acknowledged. With his popularity on the upswing, it is acknowledged him going through these downward cycles, and the fact that he didn't become like this. Moments where, McLaggen is getting up in his face and Snape's gonna come into his face, we are looking at the possibility of why not react this way. We're gonna hit that point with Draco, and we're gonna get this want to react in a violent manner. So this is a possible part of who Harry is, and that can be frightening. Next, of course, we have Marvolo Gaunt, the father, and this is sort of an interesting one because Marvolo, for the most part, in a lot of what he's saying, is talking about his family's bloodline and where it's traced from. Like Salazar Slytherin's bloodline comes through ours. Again, looking at Harry's downward cycle moments, and you see our Slytherin. Oh. But that's not just it. It's not just the downward moments and the heir of Slytherin concern. the interesting thing is, it is practically everybody else that has been telling Harry the importance of his bloodline. They talk about how much he looks like his father, but he has his mother's eyes. That really is saying that you are a product of your parents. So Marvolo in this moment isn't necessarily a direct reflection of Harry, but he is at least a twisted reflection of the society in which Harry lives, in which there is this sort of almost constant, unconscious attention to your bloodline and who your parents were and who your families were. Here, of course, is being really put in your face, particularly with the ministry actions towards these different bloodlines. Of course, Marvolo is saying that the ministry is discriminating against them because they're purebloods. But we know for a fact, again, in that twisted sort of funhouse mirror way, that the society does have an overarching concern with blood status. And for the most part, of course, we look at it as saying the purebloods are discriminating against the mudbloods or the muggleborns. But we also have to recognize that we can't make the assumption that all purebloods are going to feel this way either. And in doing so, we're going to cause just as many problems with this twisted view as society is with their own twisted view. And then I think one of the most interesting characters to sort of look as a reflection of Harry is the daughter, whose name I'm really probably gonna massacre. Merope. We're gonna go with Merope. As the frightened thing that is expected to be a thing and not a person. Merope in this moment of just hiding behind her hair and trying not to get noticed and getting dragged around and having her brother tattle on her because she's attracted to something she shouldn't be attracted to. Does this not sound familiar? Does this not sound like Harry growing up with his aunt and his uncle who either want him to disappear or do what he's told, and he's getting dragged around, and Dudley's tattling on him when he's got an interest in something he shouldn't have an interest in? There is a real direct correlation between Merope's situation within the Gaunt house and Harry's situation within the Dursley house. And it becomes a question of what will you do to get yourself out of that situation. And for Merope, it's nothing until the major obstruction is moved, and then quite literally to do what she has to do, and never mind ethics or laws or anything like that. Like, love potions are illegal, and that's for a reason. So she really is sort of, once the thing she's very frightened of is removed, she recognizes, okay, I need to go, or that's going to be back. And I'm not going back there no matter what. Which is true, because it seems to be even after Tom Riddle Sr. leaves her and she's pregnant, she doesn't go back to the Gaunt house. Like, she ends up sort of wandering off to this Muggle orphanage, has the child, names it, and passes away. She doesn't go seeking protection from a place that she knows is not going to protect her. Which is then sort of the weird turning point with Harry, is Dumbledore's insistence that Harry returns to the Dursley house every summer, Dumbledore's attempt at preventing Harry from becoming Merope. Is Dumbledore, instead of removing that negative influence, like the Ministry removes Merope's father and brother, sort of forcing Harry to remain in this situation with the hopes that Harry will be protected and will better himself going through this moment, rather than, you know, the complete opposite in which we become Morphin and just literally even kill our friends if they're not nice to us. A poor snake on the door. And all of these moments, we're getting sort of the Gaunt representation of them in the House of Gaunt chapter, but then in Hermione's Helping Hand, we are getting recognized moments that, even in the long run, we can see better moments with Harry. The chapter Hermione's Helping Hand, coming right after the House of Gaunt, is sort of the thing that's going to tie us back. It's going to be getting those little things that are then niggling in our brain and making us think about it, and then we can spread it to the whole narrative. But we need this chapter afterwards, even if it seems that we're sort of doing a 180 and heading in a different direction. Quidditch! No, there are moments that the House of Gaunt and the Gaunt family are popping up. Part 2, a little more not fixed in my head, and that is Hermione, stop. Or also, be more like Dumbledore. Okay, so these two chapters point to this question about what do you leave to somebody else? What actions or questions or knowledge do you leave somebody else to overcome and handle? For example, Dumbledore isn't just straight up sitting Harry down and saying, okay, look, there's this Lady Merope Gaunt, and she was Voldemort's mother because she fell in love with the... No, he doesn't tell Harry that. He lets Harry figure that out as they're going through, gives him the little hint with Marvolo's proper name, and we get to that point. Same with the ring. It is a moment where Harry goes, nope, that's the same ring. Have you always had it? No. Did you get it at the time you hurt your hand? Yes. And then Dumbledore stops him there because, again, it's a question of how much knowledge do you give somebody, especially when all of this is pretty important. You don't want to overwhelm him. You need Harry to have time to, again, that cycle that I've mentioned previously about internalizing it and then externalizing it, which is a cycle that Harry is very directly aware of. He asks if it's okay to tell Ron and Hermione, because he knows he wants to go through this cycle. And then on the other hand, in Hermione's Helping Hand, we have Hermione making the decision for both Ron and Harry in regards to McLaggen. Which, in all honesty, I think both of those gentlemen could have made that decision on their own. I think Ron could have achieved his 5, even if McLaggen had achieved 5, and I think Harry's smart enough to figure out that McLaggen really isn't the type of person that he wants to have on his team. Even without this immediate outbreak, he's already seen the arrogance that's there, and he's going to figure out very quickly the type of person McLaggen is. So Hermione, again, is falling into this tendency where she just makes the assumption that she should do and know what these guys don't, and know it for them and do it for them, which I don't think is necessarily a positive thing. I mean, if she wants to come up to Harry later and say, look, Harry, I don't think McLaggen's going to work. He was saying a lot of really nasty things about both Ron and Ginny. That's going to work, but to directly interfere in the way she does, that's an issue. Because it's not a life or death situation. There's no one's going to get hurt if you don't interfere, but there are concerns if you do interfere. If someone's in immediate danger, yes, interfere. But in a moment like this, where Quidditch is supposed to be the place where everyone involved has their own control, suddenly coming in and changing that is an issue. So I'm not agreeing with Hermione here in her decision to interfere. I think both the guys could have handled it well. Ron's learning. He still hasn't quite achieved. Maybe don't get angry when something happens with your friends. But again, with all of them, they're growing up and they're humans, they're fallible. Jealousy, annoyance, concern, it's all gonna happen. Maybe we should just be happy it's happening on the Quidditch field. Lavender's coming too, and that's gonna be a fun one. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading, and I hope you do too. See you next time.